Our saint this week is Elizabeth Ann Seton, who lived from 1774 to 1821. Her feast day is January 4th, and she is the patron saint of converts. The nun from Wall Street. Elizabeth was always being invited to parties. No wonder. She was a very popular young lady. She enjoyed riding her horse. She was musical. She spoke French. Just the sort of things that fashionable young ladies in New York were expected to be good at. What's more, she was very beautiful with her dark brown eyes and long dark hair. It was not surprising that young William Seton fell head over heels in love with her. When she fell adoringly in love with him too, they were married and seemed certain to live happily ever after. Their married life began well enough in a grand house on Wall Street. William worked hard at his family's shipping business. Elizabeth was occupied with babies. First came Anna Maria, then young William was born, followed by Richard, Rebecca, and Catherine. But worries came too. William was no longer as healthy as he had been. To make matters worse, his father died, and the shipping business began doing badly. William was terrified that they might lose all their money and end up in prison. 2 years later, some of his fears came true. They went bankrupt, and many of their possessions had to be sold. Then, in the year 1803, their doctor said William might get better if he got plenty of sea air by going on a long voyage. As Elizabeth sold her remaining possessions, some silver, vases, and a few pictures, in order to pay for the fares for herself, William, and Anna Maria. The other children, William, Rebecca, Richard, and Catherine, were left with William's sister Rebecca. They sailed across the Atlantic Ocean to Italy to stay with some friends they had there. The voyage was very enjoyable, but disaster was waiting for them when they arrived at the port of Livorno in Italy. Because there had been an outbreak in New York of an illness known as yellow fever, they were not allowed to leave the port in case they were infectious. Instead, they were put in a stone tower just outside of Livorno and kept apart from all other people. For 40 days, the family suffered. Elizabeth looked after her husband, who was now coughing up blood. She tried to amuse Anne Maria with stories and games, and she held little prayer services. Eventually, they were free to join their friends, but William died soon afterward in Pisa at the age of 37. While waiting to return to America, Elizabeth went to church with her Italian friends. They were Roman Catholics. Elizabeth liked the services, even though they were not what she was used to. She had grown up in the Anglican, or Episcopalian, church. Back in New York, she realized she had to earn a living and support her children. She did this by becoming a teacher, and at the same time she became Roman Catholic, despite the opposition of family and friends. Then she was asked to start a girls' school. Other young women joined her in this work, and eventually they formed a religious community, the first in the United States. Elizabeth was a wealthy young woman who had expected to marry a handsome man, be a loving wife, have a number of happy children, and live in style. Instead, she had to face illness, the loss of her husband, and poverty. With each new problem, she found that God gave her strength and courage to cope. The purpose of our daily work. Elizabeth Ann Seton wrote these words. What was the first rule of our dear Savior's life? You know it was to do his Father's will. Well then, the first purpose of our daily work is to do the will of God. Secondly, to do it in the manner he wills, and thirdly, to do it because it is his will. We know certainly that our God calls us to a holy life. We know that he gives us every grace, every abundant grace. And though we are so weak of ourselves, this grace is able to carry us through every obstacle and difficulty.